And if you don't have a reliable product that you can pitch to your clients, like if you can't say, hey, this is how it's going to be done every single time, right? Then you don't really have a product to sell. You need to know what the end product will be every time to be able to pitch that to a client accurately and set up proper expectations. So if you're not utilizing AI for your documentation, you're really missing out on probably one of the biggest opportunities that's out there.
This is Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, your go-to guide to solving your biggest marketing agency challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and each episode is an honest and frank look at what agencies go through, from turning clients to tackling tech and ideas that you can apply to your own business. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, where each and every week we're talking to marketing agencies like you, going through many of the same struggles you're going through and sharing their stories. Subscribe to find in each episode the inspiration, the motivation, and the perspiration that go into growing and scaling agencies like yours. Now, each agency owner starts somewhere, but what happens when that somewhere is completely from scratch? Without formal training, industry connections, or a proven playbook to follow? The journey of building a marketing agency can feel overwhelming enough when you know what you're doing. But imagine taking that leap while learning everything as you go. Today's guest knows this journey intimately. Alan Thompson, founder and CEO of Stingray Branding, built his agency from the ground up starting in 2008, learning every lesson the hard way, turning those lessons into a formula for success. With 3 generations of small business owners in his family and service in both the U.S. Army and Air Force Reserves, Alan brought a unique perspective to agency ownership, proving that sometimes the best education comes from real-world experience. Hey, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for your service. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love if you could start by just taking us back to the beginning. What motivated you to start an agency without any kind of formal marketing experience, and what were those first few months like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I launched in 2008. I went to basic training in the summer of 2008 and returned late fall, almost December timeframe. And at the time that I was at basic training, the economy basically collapsed. And before I left for basic, I was a server assistant at a prestigious golf resort here in Charleston, and was making pretty good money. Kind of had a focal point, thinking that would be my career potentially. The people that were servers there had been there like 30 years, and were all making pretty close to 6 figures a year. And I was like, yeah, that could be cool. And I got back and I'm like, man, this isn't enough money to pay my bills. This is an issue. So I had built websites for my dad's business and some others on Microsoft Front Page in like 9th and 10th grade of high school. And then took some multimedia and web design classes in high school in my junior and senior year on Adobe Dreamweaver and all the Adobe products. And a friend of mine was basically like, hey, for some extra cash, you should throw up an ad on Craigslist for web design and see what happens. And I landed like 30 clients in my first year, which sounds incredible and like a huge success story. And what I realized whenever I went back and ran the numbers a couple of years later, I was making about $3 or $4 an hour. And I would have made more money working at McDonald's, but it's what launched the agency. And so I started out as a web designer, and had to essentially evolve over time with bringing on a copywriter and somebody to help with graphics and things of that nature. But yeah, that's what kicked it all off was the 2008 recession.
That's so funny. My start was very similar. I also used Front Page, and then I evolved to using Drupal for the EMS web developers in the audience. You'll know that means I'm a bit of a masochist. But this was also back in around 2008, come to think of it. And back then, WordPress wasn't quite as extensible as it is today. Drupal was powerful enough to power the White House website back then, even though it really was painful to develop sites with Drupal. But that's what I was doing back then. And then I also transitioned more into digital marketing, social media, and so on. So I love hearing that journey. That's fantastic. I'd love if you could share a story about an early mistake or a challenge that maybe taught you a valuable lesson about running an agency.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like every project I worked on for probably the first 3 years was that. But in particular, a couple months in, I met a guy that was doing rentals. So like he was renting out houses or running like an aggregate for house rentals throughout the world. And contracted to build a website for him as an HTML, PHP style website that we built using Dreamweaver. I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of about 180 pages.
Wow.
And yeah, big eyes, right? I
Yeah.
threw a number out there. I'm like, yeah, I've about X amount per page, and we'll do this. And I quoted them, and I don't know. I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of like 10 grand. It's like, awesome, awesome. Yeah, we'll do it. I'll give you a little bit down, and then whenever we're done, I'll pay the rest. I'm like, okay, sweet, sounds cool. And I, uh, we worked on that site. I worked on that site for about 6 months, like missing dinners, not missing holidays, working weekends, because I was still working my full-time job too, of course. So all this stuff happened on all my off time, and get to basically like I learned a lot, right? Because I went into this with zero experience other than a couple high school classes. So and of course, back then we didn't have, YouTube wasn't quite as extensive as it is now with all the educational videos it has, and there weren't, as many informational things to figure out. You just kind of had to learn it on your own, by playing around, and went through the 6 months of building this thing out. And at the end of it, guy moves to Canada, can't get an address for him, deletes his phone number, and I never get paid.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the lessons that I learned out of that were many. Number one, charge a lot more. Number two, get a contract. And number three, 50% down payments for every project moving forward. And to this day, those three things still happen. Make sure
Yeah.
you're being paid what you're worth. Make sure you're getting down payments up front, and make sure you have a contract with a good address to follow after.
Wow. Just to give a little context for those listening, if you're not web designers, Dreamweaver was the tool of choice, 10, 20 years ago. It allowed you to do a lot of advanced things, but it was still working on one individual HTML page at a time. You really weren't using any kind of fun CMS where you could just build a theme and then create all the pages you wanted and they all look the same. Oh, no, no. We had to create them one HTML file at a time and have includes so that we could have the same menu across different pages. Yeah, just a monumental amount of work. I can't tell you how much I feel for you right now. But I appreciate you sharing that story because it is the kind of thing that you have to learn. Even if you went to school for marketing, they still probably wouldn't have taught you that kind of a lesson. That's those are the kinds of hard knocks we have to just kind of live through. But one of the things that you mentioned was that I know you were pitching basically this web development service without having a whole portfolio and resume of work that you could share with folks. How are you developing the confidence to be able to walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, I can do this for you," while you're still learning the ropes yourself?
Yeah, I had played around a lot. I built some different test websites. I built a website at the time. I owned a Pontiac Fiero. I don't know if you remember those fun things from back in the day, but I had one of those, and I was the president of the South Carolina Fiero Association. Built a website for that. Still have the one that I built for my dad's business, and then of course my own. And I knew that I was a lot less expensive than others. I mean, I was undercutting the market, essentially, right? Freelancing at that point, and so I knew I had that as a leg up. And then I knew that I had to overcome the experience issue. So, whenever I'm going out to meetings, like I would always wear a suit. I was always in at least slacks and a long sleeve button down shirt, oftentimes also with a tie and a jacket. It's funny because as I've grown, people always refer to the fact that I have a baby face. I've always looked younger than I am, and thinking back on it now, I'm like, okay, so whenever I was pitching these people at like 18, I had to look like I was probably 12. Um, so they knew they were getting a steal by hiring me. I figure is what they guessed. which, I of the clients that I landed, there were quite a few good ones. There was a local shoe um, chain basically
Mhm.
here in Charleston that was very well known. They were the high end shoe chain, and landed them as a client, a few others, and of course that started to snowball. And I think a lot of it just I knew that I could believe in myself. I knew that like I may lose money on this project. It's probably going to be more work than what I'm selling it for to some extent, but I'm going to learn something through it, and no matter what, I'm going to get it done. And
Yeah.
whenever I met with people, I mean, that was pretty much the pitch. Like, hey, I'm new to this. This is a new business, but I know that I can build what you're looking for, and I know I'm going to do a great job, and you're going to love it whenever I'm done. So let's just make it happen. And that worked pretty well. About a year into doing it or so, I came across a couple of other people, a couple, married couple, that the wife was a copywriter and the husband was a graphic teacher at the local college at the time, and partnered up with them, and they started doing the web copy and graphics for all the websites that all I had to do was code them and like lay them out and stuff. And I think that helped my credibility a bunch. They were in their 30s at that time, so whenever we went into meetings, it was the trifecta team, and I probably was able to benefit off of their age a little bit, and the fact that he was they both were experienced in the industry.
Yeah, and there were some great lessons that you just shared. You started off by doing what essentially was some complementary work, whether it's for family or friends or whatever, to get that experience and have something to show. I remember doing a website for my dad's campaign for office, that he was running for an office in Ohio, and built a website for him. And I built a website for an organization that my mom was running, to have just something to show for folks and to give you both that experience in that portfolio and so many other great lessons. Did you put any systems or processes in place to kind of help you ensure that you were delivering quality while you're still learning how to do all this work?
Back then, there wasn't a whole lot. We just kind of went off the customer's experience. We used analytics a lot. I don't even know if we were using Google Analytics back then. I think it was like Bluehost Analytics maybe or something. It was like the analytics from the server, right? You could watch the bandwidth and things of that nature. And I think it counted the hits. And back in the day, well, remember the hit counters? We were using
Oh my
those
gosh,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, using the
That
hit
was the
counters.
analytics right there, the hit counter.
That's it. So yeah, we use that, and our project management system was Microsoft OneNote. We had a shared one, yeah, shared OneNote, like notebooks. We had a notebook for each client. We would all just kind of like put our hours into that, and the passwords and different stuff we needed, and notate it all in there. And um, at some point, I got the privilege of converting all of that stuff over to an actual project management system. So that was fun. But no, I mean, overall, it was really just we just put in whatever work was necessary to make sure the client was happy, even if it was a loss. Basically, we whenever we went into a project, we would ensure that if we can if we can make a profit, that'd be fantastic. But if we can make a great product, then that's what matters, and that was always the driving factor is the client satisfaction. And we just started getting referral to referral back in the day when we first started I mean, we were really just doing web design, right? So I didn't have any understanding at that point of um, paid ads and yellow pages back then, or any of the stuff that was coming out, Google SEO. None of that stuff was within my wheelhouse. So everything we got was off of word of mouth, going to networking events and groups, and just doing a good job, and letting those stories kind of sell you was really the way that we grew for the first, honestly, almost the first 10 years being in the business. We didn't really move into actual marketing services until after 2016. So eight years.
Well, so you talked about setting pricing, trying to make a profit if you can. How did you figure out pricing and services when you were just starting out? How did you figure out what you were going to offer?
Yeah, we went through and just kind of looked at the whenever I had the three partner or the two other partners for the three-way team, um, we each had our own prices basically. So the copywriter would set her price, the graphic designer would set his price. I would have my price for the time to code. We'd add it all together and put a profit margin on top of it. Um, and it's easy to work whenever you're that small. You know if you're making profit or not. And you don't have, even if you go over, you don't have any staff you have to pay the overage on, right? It's just your own time that you're going over on. But as we grew, we paid attention to what other people were charging, started increasing based on the value we could prove that we could do. And people, we would get feedback, right? If you're routinely getting told, "Oh man, that's such a great price. You guys are such a great value." Well, then that equates to you're undercharging, usually. So it's time to go up. And then looking through, as we started to bring on employees and things of that nature, that was one of the challenges that honestly, until I went to the University of Florida and graduated with a business degree, I really did not understand pricing and the service base, right? And the product is rather easy, right? You have your cost of goods, you have your fixed cost, and then you can add your profit margin to it. In a service-based business like ours and marketing, you charge on value. You charge based on the time that you're paying your staff. Do you charge on the cost that you're putting into it? There's so many different variables that you can base your pricing off of. And honestly, until I graduated, I really didn't grasp an understanding and create the right shift there. It's only been the last handful of years that we've really started to see a true profit margin growth and not working on like a zero-based budget, which is unfortunate, right? Because you're so many years in the industry, and that's probably one of the downfalls that, looking back now, starting this from the ground up, never getting any mentorship or education from another business owner, right? I didn't even learn about mentorship until a few years ago, and implementing that. That if I had, it would have probably saved me a ton of effort, and we would be miles ahead of where we are now.
That right there is also a fantastic tip for all of you listening. If you haven't already, find a mentor, find somebody that you can work with, or at least find a mastermind of some other agency owners that are on similar journeys as yourself so that you guys can meet on a regular basis and talk through the challenges you're each facing and help each other. But we're talking today with Alan Thompson about what it was like to dive into the world of marketing agencies and how he's achieved so much. But before we continue, let me share with you a story of how another agency has achieved success.
One, I love social media. I love what we do. I love, one of my sayings is that I feel like we're changing the world one post at a time. And the positivity, it's just, who I am. Currently, we are growing leaps and bounds. We just in the last couple of years have expanded our office. We're getting ready to expand again. We manage over 150 accounts just on Agora Pulse. So it has to be user-friendly for me and everyone that works with it. And it has to be something that I know that I can rely on, that I can trust. Like I said, and the biggest feature that we have is just the dashboard, that it is so easy to use and that anybody can use it. And actually, one of the reasons why I switched from the company that I had used before was that the lack thereof of customer service. It's definitely been, if not the best, one of the best companies to deal with as far as customer service.
So, Alan, fast forward to today. You're now doing more than just web design. Are you a full service agency? What are the services that you're offering today?
We are, yeah. So we're a full service digital agency, doing everything from the initial branding, graphic design, website design, through getting identified with marketing, through social media, SEO, Google Ads, etc., and then results scalability with sales training, 10x partnership, and ensuring CRM automation deployment.
That's
So everything
fascinating.
in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that connection between social media and results trading. How are you measuring, the business impact for social media for the clients that you're working with today?
So a lot of our everything we do is third party backed with transparent reporting. So uh, we see the same reports that our customers do. We want to make sure that the systems that we're utilizing for social media scheduling and SEO and all those things, that they all have good reporting metrics, and that those are delivered to us just like they're delivered to the client, and that we're sharing those same reports with our clients. Um, based on that, we'll create the strategy to either optimize and do more of things that are working well, or we'll cut out the things that aren't, that are underachieving. And then once we set up a solid, good marketing system, that company is growing and grows to a level that they would no longer necessarily need to be outsourcing their marketing, but instead need to start looking at bringing that internal. We'll actually help with training the marketing team that they bring in, or the marketing person they bring in, the sales team, through the 10X partnership that we have, and making sure that that business is built for scalability. So our goal is to essentially work ourselves out of a job over the course of 5 to 10 years of partnering with a business.
Love it. That's a very admirable approach. So as your agency has grown, you've learned, are there any other specific tools or technologies that have been somewhat game changers for you in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking back, I mean, like we touched on earlier, mentorship is going to be a big deal. I wish that I'd had that in place way back when. And then I think for any business in general, but definitely for agencies, a project management system will make or break your agency, and setting it up correctly. I think that it's easy to, you start Googling around and you find stuff. It's easy to find a project management system. It's a whole different ballgame to set it up correctly. And whenever you're small and you're first implementing that, you don't think through all the things like the making sure the descriptions are in there for every task, for how do you want it done, right? How do you want everything systemized? How do you want to make sure that whenever your brand new intern comes on and replaces the person that's been doing it for the last 5 years, that brand new intern does it the exact same way that the 5-year senior tenure person is doing it. So taking the time to properly set all that stuff up has been a massive overhaul challenge for us that I wish we had put into place in the very beginning, and not necessarily built all of our systems with the understanding that we were doing the work, right? Like, I already know how to do this. I don't need to have a 30-step guide on what to do here. Well, as soon as you bring in that new person, you need a 30-step guide.
Yeah.
And then in a CRM, I didn't learn about CRMs until, I don't know, 12, 13 years into this ball game. And I look back at the number of people that I, made contact with at different networking events, and leads we had, and so on, that didn't close from the first like 8 years or so of being in business. And man, if I had all those people into a CRM, whew, the gold mine I'd be sitting on today. So for any agency or business, that's a huge recommendation that we always tell them, is like, get your CRM set up correctly, get your automations built out, get your sales process built out, automate everything you possibly can, and start building, that stockpile of contacts and assets you're going to have. And then culture, I think, is a huge thing with marketing agencies. There's so many different agency types that are out there, right? You have your boutiques that are maybe they're just making the posts and handling the emails and taking that off the business owner, and making sure that business looks really good. And, you have your freelancers, you have all these different types. And then one thing that we shifted to over the last few years is we really wanted to be results driven. We were operating on the lower end of the market, trying to go after volume, and just trying to be that agency that's like, yeah, we'll take all this stuff off your hands. You don't have to do it. We have the expertise. We can help you with it, but not really measuring the back end of everything. And we shifted that over the last 24 months or so into, hey, look, we're here to help you have results. That's really the goal that we want to have. Those are the conversations we want to have. And at the end of the day, that's what you're going to measure us by anyways, right? Even if we're selling you the $200 a month social media package, 6 months from now, the conversation is still going to be, what have I gotten from this? So if that's going to be the conversation either way, we might as well go ahead and sell the services and build in the processes to actually deliver that from day one. So we stopped targeting the lower end of the market and went after and have started going after the companies that's their goal, right? They're looking for growth. They're looking for expertise. They want value back out of what they're paying for. And it's really helped tremendously. We've seen basically every month we've signed our largest client ever, every single month. We seem to exceed that. And they're all still with us. They're all still going along, and the strategies that we're using are working fantastic. So definitely pick who you want to be, and that doesn't always need to be the lowest and cheapest thing. And then make sure that you've got a solid system in place to track what you're doing, to measure the expectation that you set in the initial sales process.
That is a really powerful insight for folks who are just starting their own agency journey. They may not realize that often the business owners that they're talking to who are just looking for the cheapest solution, those individuals don't know what success looks like. They don't know what good results look like, and they're not prepared to invest what they need to get those kinds of results. No one, spending a couple $100 on social media is going to have posts that go viral like they always want them to do. That's just not realistic. They're not going to drive measurable business results. So you got to work with those kinds of clients if that's what you want to achieve, personally. So I love that. Terrific advice. Any other advice that you want to share with someone who's, again, is just starting on their journey of building an AI or an agency?
Whenever you look at those tools and technologies that really can make a difference for an agency, another one that stands out is, obviously we're all hearing about AI, right? That's the big hot topic right now. And what people focusing on AI for are, of course, ChatGPT and content creation and things of that nature. But what we found that's been super helpful is AI for documentation. So we utilize a system called Scribe. It's fantastic. It's out there. And as we're doing things, our team will just literally just click a button, start scribing, and it will screenshot and document every single click that you do and everything that you type for the entire process. And it can record up to like 300 steps. So we'll go through, the process of setting up a Facebook page or doing SEO or launching a website, and we can document literally click by click the, instructions on what to do, and then turn that over to whoever we onboard. So you take your onboarding process, like that has been I think for a lot of agencies, is a huge struggle, is getting somebody caught up to speed with how and they want all their little things done. Well, you can cut that onboarding time down to almost nothing because you train them on your culture, and then, hey, here's how you do this, right? Here's your task, and here's your step-by-step instructions. Go follow the instructions, and you show them once, give them the AI, the documentation, monitor and watch how they do it, and then let them go, and just follow it every single time. Don't skip steps. And that's been probably the biggest game changer in the last 2 years for our agency overall, because prior to that, it was almost impossible to get a system set up. And if you don't have a reliable product that you can pitch to your clients, like if you can't say, hey, this is how it's going to be done every single time, right? Then you don't really have a product to sell. You need to know what the end product will be every time to be able to pitch that to a client accurately and set up proper expectations. So if you're not utilizing AI for your documentation, you're really missing out on probably one of the biggest opportunities that's out there, right? Because we don't really want AI writing all of our content anyways, but you can use it for that. And then just looking over, as I look at the past couple of years and what I know now versus what I knew back then, spend as much time as you can absorbing and focusing, absorbing information and focusing on what people really need. I think that, you get into marketing because or at least a lot of people do, because they have skill sets with design, right? They're a great graphic designer, they're a great videographer, photographer, web, they have experience with WordPress. And as time has progressed, the barriers to entry to get into this industry continue to decrease. You continue to see more and more people getting into this, and what they don't realize is they tend to get into it initially is they think that what they're being paid for and sought after for is the design skill set. And what I was told from another person, the founder of Sign Up Quick many years ago, that I think has helped my career, my agency grow over time, is that people, business owners in particular, they don't care what we do. They don't care about what it takes to post on social media, the videos that we're doing, the website that we're building, any of that stuff. What they care about is, does my phone ring? Does the dollar in my bank account go up? And am I getting more email inquiries? So everything you do has to be from that perspective, because at the end of the day, that's what marketing is. It's driving those three things, right? Or potentially awareness for campaigns and social issues. So make sure that you understand what that person wants and focus solely on it. Make sure that you deliver that. And if you don't know how to do that, in today's world, I mean, we have so many opportunities between conferences and audiobooks and podcasts like this that you can get that information in a moment's notice and shift your whole life once you do.
That is powerful advice. Thanks so much, Alan. The last thing I'm wondering about is, as you've gone through this journey, this progression, how has your approach to actually running the agency evolved as you've gained additional experience and knowledge along the way?
Yeah, I think deploying that in our tactics and understanding what we were really being measured by has really shifted all of our services, packages, etc. And then the other thing that's really making a difference for us is whenever you get into business, or at least for me, I didn't niche. I've never been a niche company, and you hear about it a lot on podcasts. You hear about it a lot in different marketing journals and so on. Like, you got a niche, find your niche and go after it. And that thought terrified me. It just, I'm like, well, I have clients in this market, in this market, in this market, and I don't want to isolate any of those, right? I don't want to nix myself of a sales opportunity or an opportunity to bring revenue. And as you now looking back, and as I've kind of pictured what we're going to look like 5 years from now, and how AI is going to impact us, and what we're going to do to stay competitive with, the continual reduction of barriers to entry and so on, is that I've identified there's a couple of industries that we really, really thrive with, that we do a really good job on exceeding their results. Home services, restaurants, events, and member-based organizations. We have a recipe for. I'm recommending almost the same package every time I'm quoting somebody. It works every time we do it. We really have kind of mastered, this is what it takes to grow and succeed. And thus realizing that we niched. We know exactly the 4 industries that we can have success in. And those are the 4 industries that we have packages built for and that we target now. And I ended up basically getting to a niche perspective or a niche focus without ever even realizing that I did it. So now that I know that, I wish 3 or 4 years ago I had started promoting myself that way, and I probably would have a lot more clients in those industries and be further ahead as well. So that would be the other really big shift in our approach and how we're running our agency now, is that we are focusing on those 4 core industries and building products and services value around those 4. So for you, I don't know that everybody necessarily has to do that right away, but once you get in, start paying attention to the industries that you have the most fun with, the ones that you enjoy, the ones that you can bring success to, the one that you can have passion with, because that's really going to be needed as you get into the grind of this industry and things change all the time. If you can still be having fun doing it because you enjoy the industries that you're working with, I think that'll carry you much further into the career.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can't start by deliberately niching. You have to experience those different businesses, industries, and clientele. But once you do, then you start to learn how you can help them exactly the way that you illustrated. And you learn more about the industry so you can speak to them in ways that they understand. And then you excel in your own services and you can charge more. It's absolutely, yeah, despite what anybody might say, it is the absolute best approach, at least in a service-based scenario. Alan, you've been absolutely amazing. This has been such a really fascinating interview. I want to thank you. For those who want to know more about you or connect with you, where should they go?
Yeah, they can always look up our website, stingraybranding.com. I've got a page right there that connects to all my socials and such. Or, of course, just feel free to shoot me an email, alan@stingraybranding.com. I'm always happy to connect.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alan. Thank all of you for listening. We will, as always, have all of Alan's links down in the show notes below. That's all the time we've got for today, friends. But please find the Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition on Apple and drop me a review. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Till next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, hosted by Mike Alton and powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us.